Afternoon, San Francisco Association of Realtors. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to get us started promptly because I know our guest is busy. Thank you everyone for tuning in today and joining us in conversation with the Director of the Mayor's Office of Housing, Maria Benjamin. My name is Patrick Gardner and I'm a sales leader with Guarantee Mortgage and chair of the Education and Events Committee at SFAR. Co-sponsoring our event today with the Education and Events Committee is our newest committee at SFAR, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So on behalf of our committees, I'd like to welcome you to our Zoom call today. As you may or may not know, April is Fair Housing Month, and we have put this program together as a two-part series to explore the programs available to home buyers and homeowners through the San Francisco Mayor's Office of Housing. In addition to our discussion today, we will be doing a follow-up program on realtor experience of working with BMRs, best practices with lenders, as well as down payment assistance opportunities through the mayor's office. Coming to you likely in late May, our President Jeannie Gant will lead a panel discussion with SFAR locals and experts in the industry. So please stay tuned and engaged in these topics and stay on the lookout for that upcoming program. Additionally, we have a monthly fair housing video series led by Rob Edwards that will be taking place this evening starting at 7 p.m. over Zoom. Tonight's movie is powerful and not to be missed. It is called An Uncomfortable Truth and is a moving and thought-provoking documentary. So please tune in if you can. We will note the sign up in today's link on the right there in the chat. So as we get started with our webinar, I want to share some logistics for our meeting today. All Zoom audience viewers will be on mute throughout the entirety of the presentation. The webinar is being recorded and will be available to view in the SFAR social video library on YouTube, probably at the start of next week. For today's presentation, we are planning to have the tail end of the conversation be a dialogue of questions and answers. So if you do have questions, please ask all questions through the Q&A box. It'll be located at the bottom of the screen marked Q&A. We will not be directly monitoring the chat feature during the presentation, but we'll be answering questions asked through the Q&A box. Now on to a little bit of background about our guest today. Maria Benjamin is Director of Home Ownership and Below Market Rate Programs for the City and County of San Francisco's Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. Maria has more than 25 years experience in affordable housing and has assisted thousands of first-time homebuyers to realize the dream of home ownership through inclusionary below market rate housing and down payment assistance programs offered by local jurisdictions and community-based organizations. Ms. Benjamin is a strong advocate for low-income people having equitable access to affordable housing opportunities. She currently sits on the board of directors for several Bay Area nonprofits, as well as a national shared equity program network, Grounded Solutions. Maria and her husband of more than 35 years are lifelong San Francisco Bay Area residents, where they have raised 3 children and are enjoying 2 grandchildren. First off, thank you for joining us in conversation today, Maria.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And by the way, I now have 3 grandchildren.
Well, we know with everything you have going on, all the MOH programs and the people you manage, that time is not a luxury that you have a lot of. So thank you for being here. I want to let the audience know that you and I spoke over Zoom last week and had a fruitful initial conversation leading up to this meeting. Among the things we discussed was my start in real estate, being a transaction coordinator on the largest BMR single new construction project to date, 888 7th Street. Your celebration of how far MOH programs have come over the past decade. And one thing that I forgot to ask you, but wanted to lead off our conversation today on was, how did you get started in this work? And what inspires you to keep at it?
Sure. You know, I started in this work, actually not in this work. I started in early childhood education. And I did preschool and I loved it, but I couldn't earn a living wage on it. And so I began to do some advocacy around childcare workers. And by doing that work, I realized it was clear, evident that childcare employees had a very difficult time securing housing in the Bay Area. And it was one of the top things that issues that we were working on was securing housing. So that kind of started the ball rolling with housing. And at the same time, I'm starting a family and trying to purchase a home. And my husband and I had no idea what we were doing. We come from people, my parents own their own home, his parents own their own home, but we were going to do this on our own. And went through all of the pitfalls that first-time home buyers go through. And there was no such home buyer education or assistance, or, we had to totally rely on the real estate professionals. And that was sometimes good and sometimes not so good. So when we were talking about how to help low-income folks secure housing, for me, I thought, well, why shouldn't a low-income person be able to own a home? And if they need help so that they can avoid some of the pitfalls that we went through, then that would be a good thing. So I started working in Berkeley with a Northern California land trust, and worked through some limited equity housing co-ops, and then that turned into full-on home ownership. And for about 12 years, I worked for a community-based organization, a NeighborWorks affiliate. And from there, I worked all over Contra Costa County and other areas of the Bay Area. And here I am now. I've been in San Francisco for about almost 10 years. I worked through the aughts, and aught stands for, what aught is, but it also is the awful years of foreclosure. And that experience of not knowing what to do at first, and then struggling to help homeowners keep their investments and keep their family homes and keep all that, was a very difficult time. But we were able to help hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people through that as well. And I've taken that experience and brought it here. I'm happy to be working with the inclusionary programs here and with homeownership programs here, and seeing a shift in the programs that we are delivering here as well.
All right. Well, thank you for that background. I don't know if you answered the second part of that question, which is, the inspiration part, right? So I know that there's the heavy stuff, right, of dealing with people that are going through foreclosure or people who don't qualify, but what's the inspiring piece? What can you?
So the inspiring piece for me, Patrick, is that, well, the heavy part that I didn't touch on is that so many Black and brown families were losing their homes from 2000. I saw it coming in 2006, and then up, through 12. And the loss of wealth in those communities struck me hard. And it strikes our communities hard. And it spurs a huge change in our communities. And so that became my inspiration to further help new homeowners coming in, Black and brown homeowners, as a matter of racial equity, but also as a matter of addressing gentrification. And communities that were built by Black families that I grew up in, that my husband grew up in, they don't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. So how can we ensure that the people that help build this city, help build San Francisco, still have a stake in it. And that is my inspiration, is making sure that those families still do have a stake in it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think we can agree that that's a noble endeavor. Can you talk a little bit about the charge or mission of the Mayor's Office of Housing?
Sure. Our mission is to support San Franciscans through their affordable housing opportunities and essential services also, not just bricks and mortar, but also services to help sustain housing. And we have, we create housing, we preserve housing, we protect the rights of people in housing, and then we empower people to do all those things on their own as well. And we do this through community grants to nonprofit organizations. We do this through the programs that I am responsible for that put people into housing, and we do it through loans to nonprofits to build affordable housing. We also, we are the stewards of the city's inclusionary assets. The city has an inclusionary zoning ordinance that says that when you're building buildings here, residential buildings, more than 10 units, either you pay a hefty fee that is the cost to build an affordable unit, or you include a below market rate unit in your building. And so, that's how we do all of those things. That's how we create, preserve, protect, and empower.
Since the majority of our agents on the call today are, going to be focused on the home buying aspects of what you do and the services that you provide, can you share maybe like the top 3 programs you support and how they work? Sure.
We have at the inclusionary below market rate program. We have down payment assistance programs. There are a lot of them. The primary ones are providing, currently it's up to $375,000 on a market rate property. It's going to change to $500,000, I believe, when we go out again. We also have a program that a part of that program is for educators and first responders, that we set aside funds on an annual basis for those groups of employees. And what the program I'm most excited about today is called the Dreamkeeper Initiative program. The Dreamkeeper Initiative, something Mayor Breed was very important to her. She set aside from her budget $10 million for, well, actually it's $60 million for various activities that support the African-American community and that help address some of the systemic problems that have caused African Americans, our population to decline here in San Francisco, and B, the access to resources that has been, we have not seen equal access to resources. $10 million of that 60 million is going towards homeownership. And we have created a program that is geared towards Black San Franciscans and their home of the purchase of their first home here in the city. It's a $500,000 down payment assistance, up to $500,000. Buyers come in with 1% of their own funds. We have several banks that are working with us to do 100 or 105% financing, LTV. And we that program is really geared towards Black home ownership. It's a whole program. We've kind of taken a shift from our regular down payment assistance programs, we've kind of changing the paradigm. So, you know, when you're a Black homeowner or home buyer, and you've never owned a home before, you've never gone through this process, you don't have someone to turn to say, hey, is this normal? They keep asking me for the same pay stub over and over again. Is this because I'm Black?
Hey, that's my line.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a first-time home buyer education requirement, right? We have people go through all of the education, hours of education and one-on-one counseling, but still our folks, Black folks in San Francisco, come out of that thinking like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how. And we've analyzed it a lot. And what we realize is that folks really just need someone that they can trust. There's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of anti-government trust. Like you say, I'm going to get this, but then you're making me jump through these hoops, and I don't know if this is normal, or I don't know how to. So we've begun a whole program of education for us, by us, and addressing some of the concerns that are unique to the African American community.
Is that the MOH FUBU program?
Yes. Yeah, right. So yeah, so you know, we do Saturday circles as people are out there looking for homes, that they can come back, or going through the process, or going through education, or going through the process of getting a loan pre-approval, so that they can come back and ask questions and get support from one another through this process. If I had to buy my first home in this market, man, it's so difficult in the best of circumstances.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you've got limited resources and, you know, and you're just having to trust, it's really difficult. So we're building trust. That's kind of that's our goal, is to work towards building trust, so that the African American community can or cannot, their choice, right? Take advantage of the opportunities that San Francisco has, because there is no other city across this country that's giving $500,000 in down payment assistance.
No, certainly not. And then I think we can agree that this is probably the most difficult time to purchase a home in the Bay Area and in San Francisco. I mean, affordability is, you know, gone through the roof, you know, and there's so much demand for housing, and rents are, you know, creeping up again. There's just a lot of push to get out there and to be able to purchase, but there's not a lot of opportunity.
Yep.
All right, so that's a very unique program, and I'm glad the mayor's invested in that. You also, I think, was there a grant or a gift that was made also?
Thank you.
We were talking about last time.
Yes. So we have what we're calling a wealth building grant to help with closing costs. It's up to $30,000, and I mean, you know, when you're buying a $1.5 million house, or whatever the median sales price is now, just the closing costs alone, folks don't have that amount of savings. And so this is really helping make sure they can get their foot in the door.
What's the grant called? Or what's
wealth
the
building?
called?
It's wealth building. We just call it wealth, and it's in combination with the Dreamkeeper down payment assistance.
Okay, and agents and buyers can find this information all on the mayor's office.
You know what? It's hard to find. I'll tell you, it certainly is hard to find. We are really doing very targeted outreach. So, so we don't have a big page on the website saying, come on, everybody, come get this Dreamkeeper DELP that's meant for Black folks. So if you are interested in learning more, then I definitely have a phone number for you to call.
Okay, well, let's, Jen, I know you're on here, so just if we could listen and post in the chat what that phone number is. And this would be resources for wealth building and resources for the mayor's targeted program for down payment assistance for.
Well, I'll tell you that we do have there is a Dreamkeeper website.
Okay.
And yeah, I will get it for you and put it out there. Sorry, I don't have it. I'm gonna send a little message to get it right now. But so there's a Dreamkeeper website, and then the way that we are, the way the program works is that the home buyer themselves contacts us and attends an info session. And that info session speaks to the purpose of the program and speaks to who the program is for. And from that point, that interested home buyer sits down one-on-one with a housing counselor to determine their mortgage readiness. And if they're ready now, fantastic. They move forward with their homebuyer education, the workshops and all that. If they need a little work, then they will undergo the little work and figure out what they need to do to get themselves to a point where they are ready in this market. So it's really not a realtor-driven program.
Oh, it could be realtor driven in the fact that realtors know buyers.
Well, that's
and
right.
So those realtors can reach out to their buyers and say, hey, you should check this out. So what is the number for, is this the wealth building grant?
This is for the Dreamkeeper program.
Okay.
Oh, look, Jeannie just put it in the, hi, Jeannie Gant. She just put it into the chat.
Yeah, so there's the DELP. All right.
It's a Dreamkeeper DELP, and that's where you find out about the
funds that are available.
Yes.
Yep, and the program.
And then there's a list that we can that we'll keep. Perfect. And the next time there's we actually think that there's going to be another info session in May.
Okay. Would you, I know you're not like outwardly marketing this, but could this be something that we could circulate to our membership?
Maybe
you and I can talk about that later, but just as an idea, maybe that's a way that we could
certainly
more outreach.
And what I would have you circulate to the membership is the contact person's email. Okay. And the contact person is Anika. The manager for the program is Anika Harrell. So her email is aneka.harrell@sfgov.org. Thank you. I should have had all that ready for you, and I'm sorry I didn't. But that would be the best way to do it. To contact Anika, and because Anika is keeping a list of all interested people so that when we do schedule the info session in May, she can send it out.
Perfect. All right. Well,
and a realtor is more than welcome to come and sit in on the info session.
That's good.
If you want to get more information about the program.
That's great. All right. Let's dive a little bit deeper into how you guys are tracking demographics. So can you explain a little bit about what the demographic data suggests about who is using your services?
Sure. It depends on which services. So in our rental housing, we our rental housing, people that are seeking services in our rental housing looks just like the demographics of the city in general. For our homeownership housing, it does not look like the city in general. We are serving far more Asian Americans than anybody else. And we serve fewer white folks in San Francisco in our homeownership programs. We serve about the same equal amount of Latinx folks that are actually in the population in San Francisco, and we serve far few African-American folks through those programs. That's part of the reason we're doing this push to get more people informed of the programs. And we want folks to make a choice. Is this something that they want for their family? And not have to say, I didn't even know that the city gave $500,000 for down payment assistance, or I don't know what a BMR is. And one of the things that we're really fighting is, oh, I know what a BMR is. My cousin had a BMR and he couldn't sell it. The other units in the building were going for $1 million and he couldn't sell his for $1 million. That perception, that's true. That's for real true. But I ask you, ask your cousin, could he have afforded that market rate unit when it first came out? And if he could, why didn't he go for it? Chances are that first-time homebuyer needed it, they couldn't do it, couldn't get into this market. And so when that's the devil in the details. When you purchase a below market rate home, it's so much lower and people are so excited to be in this beautiful new unit and for such a good price. And then when you leave the unit, you're going to sell to the same kind of first-time homebuyer so they can be just as excited as you were. Our first-time home buyers, our folks in our BMR units, the average amount of money that they walk away with as equity is, depending on how long they stay, but if they stay for 7 to 10 years, it's about $80,000. Of course, the longer they stay, the more equity they build up, just like in any home ownership situation. But the perception that, oh, it's not really ownership because you can't sell it for $1 million when you leave, that's something that we address often, especially with the Black community, to say, okay, well, so you're going to rent then. You're going to rent and give your landlord sometimes more money than you would in a BMR that you owned. And at the end of 10 years, you have nothing. So I think the perception is what we're trying to address. And so that Black folks can make a decision. Is this an educated decision, knowing what the programs are really and because honestly, it feels as if we're missing out on these opportunities. And then we make choices to leave and go someplace else. Now that also, lots of folks make choices to leave San Francisco and go someplace else. If you don't want to live in a condominium, if you don't want to live in a high rise or if you want that house, then yeah, okay. People look all over the Bay Area and make that choice too. It's a distinct choice, and I respect it either way.
Well, I want to talk about the point that you bring up about the misconception of BMRs. Also, how the program works, how realtors interact with it, particularly when a property comes up for sale, or if it's a new construction project. The parameters are a little different. But you alluded to earlier that every so often, I think it's every 3 years or so, every 5 years, something like that, that you revamp the handbook, so to speak, of the guidelines for the mayor's office for below market rate homes. We've had discussions internally at the association. As is true for lending, there's lending BMR specialists that go through a process of getting approved. Should that same thing occur for realtors? And I think we're in the process of potentially flushing that out some more together. But just as far as the resale restrictions, the deed restrictions that don't allow you to rent, that don't allow you to sell for what you want to sell for, but actually have a silent, lien in there. Can you just talk about the logistics of those pieces real quick, just so we have a kind of high level understanding of how it works?
Sure. The unit is restricted by a notice of special restrictions that is recorded on the property. And it's recorded for us, it's restricted for the life of the property. So the initial homeowner buys it at a below market rate price, usually to be affordable to households at like 80, and I gotta look up what that is because I know that's the next question. 80 to 90% AMI, 80% area median income for a family of 4 in 2021 is about $106,000 a year. And 120 up to 120% for a family of 4 is about $160,000. So and the price includes the HOA dues and the taxes and the insurance and everything that goes into the housing payment. That's the first buyer buys it for that price. And when that buyer sells, their price is restricted to somebody at that same AMI level, at that same area median income level, whatever year it is in the future. The AMI levels in San Francisco typically go up about 4% a year.
So this year and next year, we should see quite a jump in that from 4% because of where inflation's at.
Well, actually, we won't. Because in years that it was spiking up 13, 14%, we kept it down at 4%. So we're going to actually see the area median income is decided by HUD, and it is actually based on area median incomes. So when incomes go down, the price would go down. If incomes go up, the price goes up. So we saw prices go down, way down, and instead of lowering the amount that a family would get for the prices, we kept it the same if it went down. But when it goes up, we keep it at 4%, and so that it rounds out over time, so that we don't want people to lose money. So this way we can guarantee that you're never going to sell it for less than what you purchased it for.
So if wages go up,
it'll keep going up 4% a year. Now, I don't know, but I don't think you can guarantee that the market is going to go up 4% a year. I don't know that you can. There might be years when it goes up like crazy, but then some where
every year, probably not.
Yeah. It just goes up so much higher than that. So that's kind of how that's how things are priced, except that some of the older formulas for homes, for BMR homes, this program has been around since 1990, or in the late 80s and 1990. And some of those formulas were different back then. So you can have a maximum purchase price that is beyond the affordability of somebody in a low-income person. On those, it will say you have to sell to a low-income person, but the price might be way over what a low-income person can afford. So those buyers, I feel so sorry, those sellers, excuse me, because they can't sell their BMR. It's very hard to sell their BMR at the maximum price. And doggone it, if we say that their maximum price is $700,000, why can't they sell it like that? And it's because they can't find a buyer, because a buyer has to be at 160,000 a year. And so they have to lower their price. And that's a mental challenge, I think, a hurdle to get over to be able to do that.
So I have participated in a number of lotteries and qualified a number of borrowers for loans and, for actually the lottery qualifications and new construction. And, the thing I think that is probably most challenging is that not everybody fits within the box, and so you can fit in one box, but you may not fit in another. You may fit in the income box, but you don't fit in the down payment box. Or maybe you have too many assets to qualify for the asset box. And so sometimes that can be a limiting factor to the pool of prospective buyers of these units, is that, there's a funnel that goes through, and it can be challenging. So,
well, we still have that funnel. But every time we review things and look at it again, we try to make the funnel wider. And
I'm sure it's not easy.
It isn't. It isn't. Yeah, but like we have rules now that say, okay, so we're not going to give you down payment assistance on a BMR purchase if you have more than $15,000 in your bank account. Or we'll say you have to use some of that down to get you down to $15,000. Then we'll give you. The assets, if you're nearing retirement age, we won't make you spend all your assets on a home purchase. You can keep some of your assets, and we'll still provide you with assistance. There's a lot of little tweaks that we've been able to make over the years, but it's still a funnel. You still gotta
Well, you actually just brought up a demographic I hadn't thought about before, and that is, we have an aging baby boomer population that is, somewhat, I'm speaking with a lot of people who are, approaching 50s, 60s, 70s that haven't actually owned a home before. I'm not saying that they couldn't buy a property if they'd owned before, because I think the first-time home buyer designation is for people who haven't owned in 3 years.
That's it.
So that if I owned 10 years ago and I'm buying today,
you're a first-time home buyer.
So I can qualify for a BMR home. Excellent. Yeah. With that being said, if I'm, of a retirement age, I'm on a set income, I might fit in that little box, and maybe if I don't have too much in retirement saved away, I could qualify for a BMR home and purchase it and live the kind of lifestyle that I'd like to live. Maybe I want to go travel. Maybe, I want this, condo in the city because, hey, I can go out to dinner and do these things. And
sure.
Where I, don't want to pay rent, but I also don't need to pay off the loan or, pay off the home before, the next phase of my life occurs, whatever that might be.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. We have a lot of older, and I say older, but I mean, older than the 25 to 35-year-olds that used to buy houses, folks who are purchasing for the first time, and assisting them in some stability.
Yeah. And like home ownership matters, like you're not paying rent.
Right. It really does. It really does. So that's another reason to change that perception, because it is financially beneficial in the long run.
So we are approaching 2:40. I promised I wouldn't take more than an hour of your time. So I've got a couple more questions written down. I'm just going to ask the one question, and then we're going to go into a question and answer period. So I mentioned this to you right before we came on, so I'll ask you again. So no one really likes the word or term legacy, right? It's kind of cliche at this point. But if you could leave behind, something transformative for the work that you've, spent 10 years on at the mayor's office, what do you think it would be?
Wow. Well, if I can expand the knowledge of the programs and the way that we get the information out to communities that are underserved by these programs now, if I can help even out the opportunities across all San Franciscans, then I feel like I've made an impact. If I can walk down the street and ask somebody, if they know what these programs are, then I feel like I've made an impact. And taking out a lot of the bureaucracy. We add bureaucracy to every transaction. We just do, because we're a big machine. And to cut a check for $500,000 or $300,000 or whatever we're cutting the check for a transaction, it takes the city at least 5 business days to cut a check. So I know that we add time, but if I can remove all the other bits of bureaucracy of, oh, well, we do this because we've always done it. That's kind of a phrase that is in local government a lot. If I can chip away at those things, that's also a legacy. And if I can increase Black home ownership in San Francisco, then that's a third legacy, right? I'm chipping them off.
Yeah, checking them off. Well, I wanted to actually dovetail on what you just said, because sometimes as real estate agents or as lenders or whomever, people in positions of power, sometimes we have the opportunity to see things in a light where it's an invitation versus a negative. Mm-hmm. And what I want to elaborate on that to say that there has been a time where this has been a dramatic seller's market. Yes. Where sellers have controlled real estate transactions, and the agents who represent those sellers often have influence in that. Yes. You and I discuss that. Yes. If you could come on here and say, hey, agents, if you are going to represent somebody with down payment funds or somebody who's, going into a transaction, who's using your services, if you could extend the peace offering or the connection to say, hey, what we're doing for these people is important. Yes. And we're providing opportunities for them to get into a home that other people have that may have an easier time. Yes. So if you can look at, a 45-day escrow versus a 30-day escrow, because it's got down payment funds associated with it, know that, yeah, there might be a couple hurdles that you have to jump along the way, but that is going to be a very, very important purchase to that individual. Yes. That they put a lot of effort and work into. Yes, for sure. And it works. Because San Franciscans that are old, long-time San Franciscans that are selling their house, they want to, we've had many in an instance where the home seller said, you know what, I'm going to wait for you because you're a long-time San Francisco family, and this is your only way to be able to purchase here and stay here and keep the character and the wonderful diversity that we have that helped build this city. So I'm going to wait for you to sell my house to you and take your offer, because our offers are just as competitive. Well, sometimes in this market. Oh my God. But and you're right, Patrick. You guys have you're there in the kitchen with the seller and can make that plea. We have people that write letters and
and do all those things to encourage sellers to wait the extra time and support first-time home buyers here in San Francisco. So thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a very important thing.
You're very welcome. Okay, so let's jump into some realtor questions here. As a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box and we will get to them in order. This is a kind of a long one. I'm sure we'll discuss the application process for the mayor's program, but I met some really great people last week at an open house. I asked them if they knew about the mayor's program. They said yes, but they work 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then take care of their kids. They just don't have the time to take the classes. I have a young child and could feel her pain with just not enough hours in the day. Question, are there a couple ways to take the courses needed to qualify for the program, different time tables set?
Absolutely. We even have a online curriculum, so they can take it in the middle of the night in their pajamas. And the one thing that we do have with even the online curriculum is that they do need to sit down one-on-one with a housing counselor and talk about their personal financial situation. But we have multiple ways of getting it done. So we have Saturday classes, we have evening classes, and then again, we have the online course.
Is it possible on the weekends to meet with a counselor?
It is. Especially, you know, the pandemic has done a shift in all in our society in so many ways, and now our counselors are all set up to do things online, whereas they might not have been before, and so they were more reluctant to do evenings and Saturdays. But now I believe that, you know, if you request it, then they can make it happen for it.
Awesome. Okay, next question. Has the Dream Keeper program opened beyond the initial invitation only participation?
No, it has not. We had about 450 African-American people interested in home buying in San Francisco that started the process. Then we had about 250 that went on through. And now we're actively working with about 96 home buyers. When that number dwindles down, then we'll open it back up again for more Black folks to apply. But so right now, yeah, we're working through. We haven't been out through all of the people that were expressed
initial interest. Okay. Next question. If someone goes to the MOH website, will they see these programs? Yes and no, I think is the correct answer.
Yes and no, right? Yeah, you're only going to see the initial description of what the Dream Keeper is, and then you'd have to email Anika to get more information.
Okay. Next question. Dream Keeper program only open to African Americans, and is the $30K closing cost wealth benefit program open to everyone?
So this is how I'm going to answer this question. The purpose of the Dream Keeper program is to address the inequities in the Black community when it comes to homeownership. The purpose is for Black San Franciscans to be able to take opportunities that were previously not available to them. Is it open just to Black people? If we say that, that's not in accordance with, we're talking about Fair Housing Month, right? But we will tell you what the purpose is. So if you have a buyer that doesn't fit into that purpose, then, you know, that would be a struggle for everyone.
And if you don't know the historical legacy in this country, you can tune into our video series this evening. It will be eye-opening. Next question. What does the city, and I don't know if you have any idea about this, I don't know if it fits in your area of practice, but it says, what does the city plan to do with the lots in the water in the Bayview Hunters Point Marina area, hence the 600 block of Egbert Avenue?
Sorry, outside of my world.
No problem. This is more of a general question, and I would say, maybe tune into the website and do a little read up, but it says, how does the BMR program work? Who do you contact? If you go to the mayor's office site, there's plenty of general information on below market rate homes, and some of the parameters should be listed on there as well.
We also have a Dahlia is our database of database. Dahlia stands for Database of Affordable Housing Applications information and applications. And on Dahlia are all the BMR listings and more information about the program as well.
Yeah, and you can get there by going to the site.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Will be determined for a buyer with 1099.
Yeah, so I can answer this. So Travis, so it says the question from Travis is, can you clarify how income would be determined for a buyer with 1099 and W-2 income? I'm working with a first-time buyer who's on the edge of qualifying for a BMR, but the 1099 income as gross calculation puts them over. Does the city look at AGI line on the tax return in that case? This is kind of the, fitting in the box situation. When an underwriter, such as somebody from the San Francisco Mayor's Office of Housing or from a lender, are looking at this, I believe they're going to look at your expenses and deductions as well as the gross income. They're not going to just go off the gross income.
So no, we do go off the gross income. We completely only go off the gross income. So I understand, and that's something that's legislated, and
well, hey, if you have a legacy, work on this, because
so listen, this is how the legacy that I can do. What we have done is expanded the opportunities, expanded the number of opportunities available at different higher income levels, so that we're not just talking about 55% area median income. We've got a sliding scale, so we should be able to serve throughout one of our programs. We have a myriad of programs, that household. Now, if they get to be over 200% area median income, then they need to go out and buy market rate.
So that's a hard stop.
200, yes.
Well,
there's no other program.
But I mean, the 1099 gross is a hard stop. Meaning, like if I'm showing 200K gross or 205 gross, and I've got like $150,000 in expenses because, of these various things, I'm out. I would think that there could be some flexibility in there, some sort of, massaging of things to get these people in.
Well, listen, it's the maximum area median income cutoff at gross income is really high. So if your income is over that, then you really can't afford a market rate opportunity. And for those folks, we'd rather them take the market rate opportunities and leave more for people that just can't get there at all.
Well, Travis, I see your follow-up question, and it's probably a little bit too detailed for our conversation today. But I definitely, would make a case, help them make a case for hitting that income line. And again, I don't think we can answer these things live. It's just too specific. So we wish you luck.
I would just say to keep looking at Dahlia and keep looking at those email alerts, and there will be something for that borrower.
Boom. All right. Wendy asks, the mayor's going to have a similar, is the Mayor's Office of Housing going to have a similar program for other groups, Asian, South Asian, and Hispanics?
Well, as I said, our program is really serving those populations now very well. So if you have somebody from that population that is that you're working with, please send them our way. We are absolutely serving those populations very well.
Last question that I see listed. Can you share Anika's email address one more time?
It's Anika, ANEKA dot.
Okay, I'm gonna
You're gonna write in the chat. Yeah, okay,
so
there you go.
one more time slowly.
Okay. ANEKA.
Yep.
Dot HARRELL at sfgov.org.
All right, did I get it right?
You did.
All right, excellent. Well, I just want to thank you again for a very productive and communicative chat about all the great programs and the work that you're doing, and thankfulness and gratitude to you for stepping up and doing it. I'm sure you deal with a tremendous amount of bureaucracy, but you're also trying to do the good work of getting people into homes that may not afford it otherwise. So thank you, Maria, for joining us. And it's been a pleasure hosting.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I want to do this again and work more with realtors. We do need you and we do appreciate you. And we have some changes in our upcoming manual, which I think you'll be interested in. So when we come to have time for community engagement on that, I might come back to you, Patrick, and ask for some
yes,
some time with you guys.
Certainly do, and highlight the changes and how we can be forward thinking and moving this along together.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.